Hello and welcome. My name is Cameron. I'm an Enterprise Services Engineer at Tanium, and today we'll be taking a look into a live Tanium environment and exploring some of the features and functionality that are available to you today in the console. In this video, I'll cover the Interact module, as well as the reports and dashboards that are under the Data tab. I'll show you how to review saved questions, favorite things that you find useful, filter and export your results, and how to build dynamic questions in the Question Builder. For those of you who've never seen Tanium before, please don't start here. Please visit our Tanium YouTube page, and you can watch our founder, Orion Hendawi, give a quick demo on the Tanium platform. Specifically, the Tanium demo watched the industry's first converged endpoint management platform in action. This high-level overview is critical to understand what sets Tanium apart from other tools, and how it's fundamentally different in the way that we gather data from endpoints in your environment. I promise this video is worth your time. There are also a lot of other helpful videos on this page covering other modules and abilities that I won't be covering here today. I'll be more focused on the content that is unique to your environment. We also have a great Tanium docs page at docs.tanium.com for additional help and guidance on using the console, configuration requirements, and great troubleshooting guides, as well as details on other modules that we offer. Here's a list of the timestamps for each section if you prefer to skip ahead. With that, let's get started. There's no better way to learn Tanium than to just start asking questions and interact. There's a wealth of information available to you today about your endpoints, and all we have to do is ask for it. We don't even need to know the proper query syntax to get started. So let's just say I want to know, what applications are installed in the environment. When I press enter, the natural language parser gives us some properly formatted suggestions based on what we type. I'll select Get Installed Applications from all machines. And within a couple seconds, we have some results coming in. The first column is the name of the application. We have the version, and then the count of the number of systems with that particular version installed. And on the top left here, we have a percentage counter. This indicates the percentage of the environment that has responded to our question. Above that, we have a count of the number of rows in our report here. And then the total count is totaling this count column right here, indicating the total number of applications found. You can see here that we are viewing current results. This means that these are the live results coming in from the endpoints. You can pause and play those live results coming in with the options here. And then we also have, in some cases, a cached or a recent option. These will show us results for systems that are currently offline. The cached results will go back 30 days, and the recent results will show the last 7 days. The cached option will only appear if we are tracking this particular data point in our TDS database, and the recent option will appear if we have a saved question. Some questions will also have hidden columns that you can show with this option here, such as the silent install string for this particular sensor. And you can add or remove columns from your report here. You can perform a quick filter on these results by using the filter by text box. We can say that the results must contain, let's say, Firefox. You can see that the number of rows has changed, as well as the total applications found. You can also use the filter by computer group to filter by one of your patch groups. If you're going to export these filtered results, don't use the quick filter. We're going to take a look at the filter builder on the top left of the results grid. Hit the arrow next to filters. We're going to click on to add a row. And let's do the same filter. Let's say the installed application name must contain Firefox. I'll press enter to apply. Then I'll add a group let's get a little more advanced with this. Let's do a version must start with 108. I'll apply that row. Add another, let's say it can also start with 109. Okay, so make sure you check your Boolean logic. We want this group to be an OR. And so to read this, it'll say installed application name contains Firefox, and this group must be true. Installed version starts with 108, and version starts with 109. I'll apply that filter, and I'll go ahead and minimize our filter builder here. So you can see the filter we applied next to the filter builder here. We can click the X to clear that filter. Now, keep in mind, if you see some that may have the may look like the same application, let's say these two here, Mozilla Firefox 64-bit ENUS, both of them 109. So why do we have two results here? Well, keep in mind that you can have hidden columns, and you can see here that they both have different results. So since these rows are unique, it will split them into separate columns. You can also click on the headers of the columns to sort. If you want to sort by multiple fields, like let's say the name would be your primary, you can hold the Shift key and click on version as a secondary sorting, and even add a third if you want to. Next, we can drill down on systems. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck these two here. I'm going to sort by version. And let's say I wanted to drill down on, let's see, version 109.0. Let's just say I wanted to find out more about these systems. You can see that when I've checked the boxes, it gives me a total of the count of systems that I have selected. I have selected 5 rows, a total of 13 systems. I'm going to select drill down. Brings us to the drill down selection page. We have a couple saved questions here. These are, default drill down questions. You can also check this box to show all of our saved questions. You can also form a new question using the question bar here, or the question builder, which we can talk more about in just a moment. So I want to get the computer names from all of the systems, of those 13 systems with that particular version of Firefox. I could use the computer name saved question here, but I want a little more information like the IP address and operating system. So I'm going to select general information and select drill down. Here we can see the original question, the versions of Firefox that we selected. And then below that is our drill down. And now we have the computer names, IP addresses, and the operating system. So we can also use the merge option here if, let's say, we wanted to add an additional column to these results. Let's say I wanted to also see if these systems are virtual or not. I have the same 3 options here. I'm just going to go to create a question this time. And I don't know what to search, so I'll just type virtual. And it gives me some options here. I'll select is virtual from all machines. And there you have it. We have an additional column added to our results here with a yes or no whether the system is virtual or not. Where the merge button was, now I have an option to edit that merged question, where I can hit the X to clear it. I'll go ahead and clear that out. Confirm. And I have a similar option here, so I see my original dynamic question and then the drill down to get the general information here. I can hit the X here to go back to my original question, which we see here. If you wish to export the filtered results, Make sure that you've used the advanced filter and not the filter by text box. And then on the top right of the results grid, you're going to hit the export icon right here next to the column selection. This export all window will allow you to set a file name. You can choose whether or not to add the headers of the columns at the top. And the flatten rows option will allow you to take any cell that has multiple returns in it and flatten them into their own separate row. And then you select export. It will be in a CSV format, and the hidden columns, all hidden columns that sensor has, will be exported in the CSV file. Now, so far, we've been using very simple Tanium questions. Let's say you want to get a lot more detail, or you wanted to get more granular with your filtering in the questions, or even find a better way of seeing what kinds of other information you can get out of the Tanium questions. For this, we're going to use the question builder. Now, we've already seen briefly in the drill down and the merge page, you have the tab over here for the question builder. After you've asked a question, you also get the option here to copy to question builder, and it's going to take the question you've already asked and let you add or remove parts of that question. But you can also start from the home page or the interact module here to build a new question from scratch. So that's what we're going to do. So let's click build question. And here we have the question builder. We have two parts of a question. The first part is the get statement. This is the information we want to get from the systems. And then the from clause, indicating which systems we want to respond to our question. Now, to kind of demonstrate this, we're gonna add a row here using the same sensor we did in our previous question, installed applications, just for simplicity. And we're going to add a filter to this. We're going to make it a row filter. We're going to say that it must contain Chrome. And I will apply. And let's just ask this question, see what happens. All right, now at the top here we have a row that's no results, with a good number of systems in it. What does that mean? This means that there are several systems that we are asking this question from that don't have any results for Google Chrome, but they are being asked to respond to our question from all machines. So to get rid of that, let's copy this back to the question builder, and just for the sake of the example, we are going to add installed applications. Add the same row filter, contains Chrome, and I'll press enter to apply. Now, this looks redundant, but what this is saying is that I'm only asking systems that have Chrome installed to respond. So the from clause is the first thing that your endpoint is going to evaluate. And if this is false, then it's not even going to send anything for the get statement. So from all machines with installed applications contains Chrome. So now when I ask this question, the only results that we see are from systems that have a result. Let's go back to the question builder. Some additional ways that you can filter in the from clause is you can use computer groups here. Select any of the default computer groups, such as all computers, all Windows, all Linux. You can say all virtual. You also have access to all of your patching groups, the group desktops, group servers. You can use the sensor computer name. To search for specific computer names. You can use the matches option here to form regular expressions to search for groups of computers based on their naming conventions. You can use things like the IP address sensor for IPv4, things like this. Now, I've mentioned sensors a couple times. A sensor is essentially a script that runs on the endpoint and returns value to the console here for us to see. You can browse all of the sensors in the question builder by category and see the kinds of things that you can ask in the environment. The deploy module, for instance, will have all of the sensors related to the third-party updates that we're doing. We have file system information, hardware, several categories, including your patch category here, and all the patch sensors that we can get information back, such as your scan errors, scan age, patch list information. Probably the more common ones you'll use are the deployment errors and the deployment results. The bottom here we have the patch installation history option. This one has additional parameters, and you can see in the question text here it adds those parameters in. I can say that we want to see the patch installation for the last 7 days, for instance. Let's say I only want to see the things that Tanium installed. And I'll apply that. If you've built a question that you would like to keep for future reference, you can always copy that text out and save it somewhere else. But we also have several questions that we have saved in the console that are available for you to use regularly. So let's go into the Interact module and take a look at the saved questions. Saved questions are different than the reports, which we'll talk about in a little bit, just in the way that we form the report, filter the data, and also how we export that data. But for now, we're going to take a look at the saved questions. We have several saved questions listed here in the bottom section. You've got categories, dashboards, and saved questions. So the categories are just filtering the number of saved questions you see here by the different categories. The dashboards are just another group of filtering those saved questions. You can also click on these dashboards to see all of those questions asked in one dashboard. These dashboards are different than the dashboards under the data tab that we'll talk about in a bit. So the reports here feed these dashboards. But the panel that you'll focus on mostly is just the saved questions. We can click the favorites option to see the different saved questions that we have starred as our favorite, the things that we use regularly. So we can quickly access the reports that we care about. Now, at first glance, there's a lot of information here. So I'll go over some of the saved questions that we have created for you that we think will be relevant to what you're looking for. First, here at the top, we can see the third-party updates by Tanium over the last 90 days. Early on, we have heard some complaints that we were looking for specific computers and they weren't showing up. And it's because we were filtering those results, if they had nothing to report, out of the reports. So instead, now we're not reporting, and we're going to show you all of the systems in your environment for whatever patch group you're looking at. And if there are no results to report, either some patch groups that you're not updating or nothing had been installed, they're going to show up as no matching deployments found. This is for third party. Again, you can see up the top we've got the question text. You can click the little icon at the end here, You can copy this into a question in the question bar or into the question builder to make modifications and tailor it to your needs. You can also, just like a live question, you can filter. Let's say we didn't want to see the ones that say no matching deployments found. We can filter by the ID. That's the name. Here's the ID. Does not contain. And here's another useful tip. If you click on this little button in one of the cells, you have the option to copy the value. I can paste it, apply. Now we got rid of all of the deployments with no data to report. Another that you might find useful is the missing application updates. This is a new report. As you can see in the question text here, we have used a regular expression to target only the applications that we are updating for you, to show us a list of systems that could be updated or update eligible. So you've got the computer name, the name of the application. We also have some saved questions for patching. Let's take a look at the patch deployments. The patch deployment results succeeded. So after you have your patch cycle, you can come and check this report to see which systems have installed which patches. So you'll have a computer name and all of the patches that it installed. Keep in mind, if you are exporting this and you don't flatten the rows, you'll have multiple results in a single cell. You might have to expand your row height to see all of the results, because you'll have several updates per computer that were installed. Next, we'll look at the same report. Patch deployment results failed, aborted, or not started. This is the same sensor in the question, filtering for those statuses. Next, we'll look at patch deployment errors. So you will only see the patch ID for the group that you're targeting. You can filter by the patching group. So all of these should be the same deployment ID if you just came out of a patch cycle. The errors, if then any occurred, will show up here. Another handy report will be patch reboot status. After a patch cycle, you can take a look and see if any of them still need any remaining reboots. It'll show the computer name, the uptime, the reboot status, and if one of them does need a restart, you can expand this here and see which registry key is actually indicating that a reboot is required. Some of them have multiple, as well as the patches that were installed and the source that installed them. Some of them SCCM, Windows Update. If it's Tanium, it will be listed in here. Next, we can also look at the a slightly different report called the patch installation history. This sensor is not pulling from the patch deployment from a Tanium log. This is pulling from a Windows update log. And so this allows us to see more than just what Tanium installed, but all of the different install sources. Now, this is actually specified in the sensor parameter as 30 days. Like we looked at earlier, we can copy that in the question builder and modify it if we want. By default, we are not showing this report per computer. We also have a saved question that includes the computer name. And then we have one filtered by Tanium only. Now, we have had a request recently to combine all of these things into one report. So we built the master patch report. Now, depending on which patches we are deploying to your systems, you will need to look at a different report. So if we are only patching the critical and important on a couple of your server groups, you'll want to run the critical and important patch list for those systems. The plus number at the end here is the number of days that the patches must have aged to be applicable to the systems. So if you have a development group or a test group that gets patches immediately as they're released from Microsoft, it would be the critical and important or the global patch list. If it's a production group, you might have a couple days of a delay on it. So you have like plus 8 days. So 8 days after that patch is released, it becomes applicable to the systems. And so now you can use these reports to see which systems are that have applicable patches not installed. And that will take into account the number of days that you are delaying your deployments. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the master patch report. This master patch report is what's feeding the weekly reports that we are sending to you via email. So these weekly reports, we have chosen the patch list that we are sending to your systems by patch group. So it's already filtered for the things that are relevant to that group. But if you come into the safe questions and you run this, maybe you're troubleshooting something, you want to run this out of that weekly schedule and compare the results, you can find the patch list for that group and take a look. Now there are several things in this report that we're showing here. It looks a little chaotic, but there are really only 4 different sensors that we're reporting on here. So first we have the computer name, or excuse me, 5. We have the computer name, we have the computer group. Then the first of the patch sensors is the patch deployment results. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different columns for that one sensor. And then we move on to the next, which is the deployment errors. So we have 2 different column headers that say deployment ID. That's because there's 2 different sources, the deployment results and the deployment errors. And so in the email that we're sending, we have a way of renaming these columns and filtering out ones that we don't think are relevant in the report weekly. So some of these columns that you see in here, you won't see in your report, but this is the report that's feeding that email. So the first several columns here for the first sensor, that's the patch deployment results. Then we have a couple for the patch deployment errors. And then the final sensor is the patch list applicability, based on which patch list we're deploying to that computer group. So we see the patches that were installed or failed or aborted and not installed. Then we see the patch deployment errors and then any remaining applicable patches. And that's all we'll cover for now with the saved questions. I recommend looking through here. You might find some other things useful in the default questions out of the box. And we will have more coming in the future. If you have any saved questions that you would like us to add to this list for your company, please let us know. Send those our way. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the dashboards under the Data tab. We've created these dashboards to hopefully be the starting point when you come into the console. The two that we'll focus on right now are the third-party application updates and the Windows patching. The system management dashboard may be changed or moved into the Windows patching. We're not sure yet. And you will be getting a third dashboard specifically focused on the Tanium client health so that you can find and report on issues with the Tanium client installed on the endpoints. So let's start off and take a look at the third-party application updates. Now, we spent some time looking over saved questions and how to build questions, and so this will make a lot more sense now because they are all fed. All of these dashboard panels are fed by Tanium questions. So the first thing we have here, each one of these applications are applications that we are updating for you in some cases, and the panel itself is fed by reports coming from the Data tab here. This top section is a snapshot in time right now. It will show the current status of the versions of each application. So Google Chrome, these are the versions that are installed right now. And it's also collecting any recent data from systems that are currently offline. So this should be a snapshot of all of the systems in your environment that Tanium knows about and the number of systems that have that particular version installed. So you can quickly come in here and see what the latest version is and which systems may be on older versions and need to be updated. Maybe there's something wrong with these systems that need some investigation. So what you could do is you can actually come in and you can click on one of these numbers to see the report. So now we're in the reporting screen here, specifically the software versions for Google Chrome. And you can see up here we've already have that particular version that we clicked on filtered. So we're only seeing one result and the number of systems that have that one installed. You can select here. You can drill down and interact and get the computer names or any other information you want about those systems for remediation. But if we close this tab and go back to the dashboard here, you can also click on the Google Chrome name of the panel here, and we'll get that same report, but with all of the versions included. So you see all of the versions here. Now, like I talked about before, we have the no results item here. It displays a little different when we're looking at reports instead of the saved questions, but that's what that blank row is. So again, this is current view. If we scroll down here, we'll see the historical views of each of these applications. As a new update comes out, you can see the percentage of that particular version as it gets updated throughout the environment. The total of all of the versions should equal up to the number of systems in your network. This view gives us the last 30 days, and when a new update comes out, you'll see it start out at the bottom here, and it will start to grow into a larger percentage of your environment if we're updating it. So again, each one of the applications has its own dashboard. And if you don't have one of these applications in your network, this panel will just show up gray. If you're not using Zoom for Outlook plugin. This would just show up as a gray panel, grayed out. You'll only see the things that are relevant to your environment. So let's go back to the other dashboards. Let's take a look at the patching dashboard now. And just as we had in the third-party updates dashboard, each of these items are being fed by a report. You can click on the titles of each panel to view that report, or you can click on any of the data points to have a filtered report for that data point. Some of these are going to be very limited. We can't show everything in every report. So, if you see 10 results here, there are more. You can just click on that report name to see all of the details. Now, again, because everyone is using a different patch list, depending on what the patch group is, we have different panels for each of the patch lists. So if we are installing all applicable patches, it will be the global patch list. If we're only installing critical and important, a lot of the server groups are doing this, it would be this patch list. So these are going to show also smaller panels here for the plus number of days for each of these patch lists. As we scroll down here, we're going to see the patches installed by Tanium. So you can see after your patch maintenance window, you can come in here and see which patches were installed, the number of patches that Tanium has installed in the last 30 days. And then we have the same report filtered by the last 7 days. Then we have, like we talked about before, a different report that's looking at the Windows update log to see patches installed by any source. So this is going to list the same thing, the patches that were installed in the last 30 days, and then that same report right here, this is going to indicate the source. So we have some that are in SCCM, WUSA, and some others here. And again, for the 7 days. There will be some modifications coming to these dashboards. We'll add a couple panels, some things that we find useful. These take some time to build out and refine. And that covers it for the dashboards. Again, more to come. Next, we'll talk about the reports. The reports, we've reviewed most of them already through the dashboards. Again, each one of those panels you can click on brings you to one of the associated reports. So there are a couple reports in here that we are not using in a dashboard, so I'll point those out. So before we do that though, let's take a look over here on the left. We have labels. Each of these reports we can assign to different labels depending on what they're related to. I've been assigning some of them to deploy and patch, and we're going to have a Tanium client health panel or label here. So you can click on one of these labels and it will filter the reports you have here by that label. So the first thing I want to show you is that the patches installed in the dashboard that we just looked at, there was a patches installed by Tanium 30 days, 7 days, and then we have installed by any source 30 days and 7 days. But when you click on those panels, you're not going to see them in a friendly view. It's going to be just the patches. You can find the sister reports here to include the computer names, so you don't have to actually drill down and get those computer names that way. So each one of those reports has its associated computer name report. And then we also have some of the patch tooling status is one, and there's also a deploy tooling status. These are the reports that I'm going to be creating to help feed a dashboard for the Tanium client health. So there are tools on the endpoint that the Tanium client uses to do the patch installs, and then also with the third-party updates, they have the deploy tools. So you can look here to see if any of the systems, the Tanium client is not installed and in a healthy state, it needs attention, or if they're in an optimal state. Again, there are more reports and dashboards to come. The last thing I'll cover here before we call it. On your home page here, you have the dashboards list. I think by default, when you log in, this will be empty. You can actually select the pencil icon here, and you can select from the different dashboards that are available to populate these by default when you log in. And that's all I have for this training. There will be more to come in future training regarding the patch module and some of the things that we plan to expose there. But that wraps it up for this video. Thanks for joining us.